On you.
Okay, so I'm assuming you guys know who Michael Jordan is. If not, he's the greatest basketball player of all time. He was, some other things about him. He was drafted in '83 by the Chicago Bulls. He was the third pick. Don't know why he wasn't the first pick, but the two people in front of him also turned out to be good players. He was drafted at the University of North Carolina, where he was born and raised. And a lot of people, when he was drafted, didn't think he was going to pan out. They thought he was too small, too light, and that he didn't play basketball his whole life. He actually was a big baseball player. His dad was a huge baseball fan, so he dedicated most of his time to baseball. But obviously, they were all wrong because it turned out to be great. So, there you go. These are some of his stats. So he's 6 for 6 in the NBA Finals, all of which were won in the 90s. Season MVP 5 times, 6 times NBA Finals MVP, 10 times scoring champion, and a whole bunch of other stuff. He was even Defensive Player of the Year and All Defensive Team. Averaged 30 points a game on average through 15 seasons, 6.2 rebounds and 5.3 assists. Played for the Bulls his entire career until 2000 when he came back into retirement. He actually signed with the Bulls and then later played 3 seasons with the Wizards. So after 15 years of basketball, he was considered the best to ever do it. A lot of people said he was better than Magic and Bird at the time. Until now, where there's an actual really close debate, and it's a never-ending debate because it will never be solved, really. So LeBron James, who's also considered the best ever, but some things about him. So he's a four-time NBA champion, 4 times Final MVP, regular season MVP, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Same with Michael Jordan. Just some stuff's a little bit better, but this kind of proves that numbers isn't everything. So he averaged 28.9 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, 7.3 assists, and he's in his 20th season. He's still playing, and shot 54% from the field, which is super good. So a lot of people, if you look at the numbers, it's kind of, a lot of people would say LeBron's better just because he has better numbers. But the 2 reasons that really make him better is that he was, Jordan played in a different era. So he played in the 80s and 90s. He completely dominated the 90s. Basketball then was a lot more physical. It was, fouls weren't ever called. People fought all the time. It was a lot harder to score. People were chosen to be defensive players over offensive players. So it's a lot harder for just people in general to, be good at basketball. So according to Complex Sports, 22 of the top 30 NBA players ever played in the Jordan era. So that kind of proves that a lot more competition. It was a lot harder to win. And so like an example of this, Michael Jordan, if you could switch. There's a thing called the Jordan rules. So can't remember the exact years. I think it was the late 89, 90, and 91 maybe. The Detroit Pistons, also known as the Bad Boy Pistons, and they were known because of what they did to Jordan, were known to be very violent, and especially towards Jordan. And a lot of people were ejected from games, fined, not a whole lot. That's why they kept doing it, because they didn't get in a whole lot of trouble for it. That's why it was such a tough era to play in. And you can see in the pictures, he was beat up pretty bad. Yeah, exactly. And he was always double or triple teamed by Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, other big names like that, big guys who didn't like Jordan at all, because he beat him for 6 years prior, always beat him. So they had to do something about it. Okay, so the Pistons were known to do that, and basically, so Isaiah Thomas even went out and said in the Last Dance documentary, which was made 3 years ago, I think, he went out and said that their actual goal was to hurt Jordan and to take him out of the series. So they tried to hurt him as hard as they could, and one time they successfully did it. He was out for 1 game out of their however many series they played together, because they were both in the East, so they always faced each other. But they would try to, the point guard, Isaiah Thomas, sorry, I didn't specify that, point guard for the Pistons, he went out and said that their goal was to hurt him and take him out of the games where he couldn't play. And that era then is so much harder to score, and that's why I think it's amazing that he averaged 30 points for his whole 15 seasons. And it was hard, like I said, hard to be good at basketball compared to now's NBA, where people don't really. It's more about money and about TV than it is actually being good at basketball. So, but it's a lot easier to be good at basketball now. People don't play defense, and it's something where I think it was the sportstalk.com. Yeah, complexsports.com. Another thing they said was that the reason that the head of the name of the article. Okay, here it is. Sorry. TheAthletic.com is the NBA. The head of the article was a scoring explosion. How the NBA in the 2010s and or now at least, the NBA's defensive rating has dropped so much since the 80s and 90s, or even just like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's dropped so much due to not people being better at basketball now, but they just don't try defensively anymore. It's just kind of they're getting paid to just play basketball. And it's so much easier for people to be good at basketball now. So like in the 90s, scoring 20 points a game was incredible. Nowadays, if you average 20 points a game, you're a role player. It's and like I said, it's not really that people are better now. It's just that there's no defense. You can do whatever you want and score anything. It's a lot about 3-pointers too. But yeah, if you average 20, you're just mediocre. So yeah, this is LeBron's era. So a lot of these pictures, that's actually LeBron right there. These are all just some examples of people that they don't play defense. They kind of just let it go down the court. They score, that's fine. If you win, you win. Not a big deal. It doesn't really matter. So like in these two pictures, I thought it was kind of funny. I didn't put any pictures of Jordan's era, but these two guys play right now. You can tell that they're not, one of them's super big, but this guy is super skinny, and he's actually really good, and so is him. He just had a 40-point game, and he is 280 pounds. These are not, they're athletic, but they're not, they can kind of just do whatever they want, because it's no defense. So basically my point is, the reason why Jordan is better than LeBron is the era differences, and how it was so much harder. If you put any of these guys in the 90s or 80s, it would be so much harder for them to be good at basketball. And I think LeBron would still be good, but I just think in general it'd be a whole lot harder to play, especially with all the physical and all that crap. So, and another reason is the rings. So a lot of people, the whole point of the sport is winning. MJ has 6 final wins, championships. LeBron has 4. If you do the math, obviously MJ wins more. And he played in the 90s. He won all of them in the 90s, and there was the 3 or 4 years that he didn't win in the 90s. He actually retired to go play professional baseball. So he played for the White Sox. So that's how good he was. He probably would have won more if he would have stayed, and that's what a lot of people debate about now. But yeah, and so an example kind of the 80s and 90s and how rough it was. Well, it happened in the early 2000s, but a thing called the Malice at the Palace. So it was a game between the Pistons and the Pacers, and basically what happened was a huge court brawl, and fans were included. Punches were thrown, fans were knocked out. One fan almost died from getting punched by the small forward for the Pacers. And the result in this was, this is the only thing they got fined, was $250, 6 hours of community service, and a week of anger management counseling. So that just proves how much different now, how you could get away with so much more stuff then compared to now. So that's the reason why I think Jordan is better than LeBron.